Let's see here. Get out of this.
I'm trying for that floating head thing. You know, I think that's one of the neatest Val Zanchuk things that I've seen. I don't think I'm going to get it.
You wear dark clothes and turn off all the lights. I think that's the
key. Yeah, just cut it off right there.
John, Barbara, Jane, good to see you all.
Hey, John, it looks like you've moved something into your room.
My halo?
Well, it goes with the voice.
Nice.
Ardinger, that's fun. You replaced the dog.
Nice, Bill.
In honor of
It's not as good as your arms moving though.
Forever to be known as Bill Regression Ardinger, right?
I wish I could do the regression as well as they were doing it.
I think one thing about Zoom is you get better attendance. Nobody's on the road.
It's true.
Nobody's on time.
Hey, David Ryan, how'd you do this weekend?
Hi, Jay. Hi, everyone. Only 2 cases. One on Thursday that took a couple of hours, and one yesterday. So,
do you have enough staff to keep schools open?
so far, we opened up our middle school today, and with some predictable problems with scheduling and remote teaching while trying to do in-person learning as well. But we're on thin ice over at the middle school with a number of staff. Keeping our fingers crossed.
You're not alone.
No. Yeah, it's getting rough. It's getting rougher, and public panic is starting to set in for a lot of people too. So that's going to make things a little more difficult, a little dicey.
So students are staying home and doing remote?
They are. A lot of parents are really starting to question why are schools even open when they still are pretty safe. The schools are, as long as
they are.
Illusion tactics. It's the safest, cleanest place. Everyone's in masks. Everyone's supervised, spaced out.
It says something for school personnel and the planning you guys have done to do that.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you. I'm really worried about my colleagues and the number of vacancies at the superintendent level and the principal level that are popping up. Superintendent job is not easy, as you know, but it's harder to find a superintendent these days. All right, Corinne? Yeah, it's hard. Barbara, you ready to come out of retirement? It's hard. And so I'm really worried about some of the districts, Hopkinton being one of them, Dave, right? Hampton, the superintendent here, resigned. He's done the end of December. He's done. Nashua, Concord. We have issues in the state with superintendency, so.
Mm-hmm.
And COVID is a culprit.
Yep. Well, maybe Susan will have a take 3.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have the superintendent's certification.
Well, I know the commissioner, we could help with that, Susan.
Yeah, no. Thank you so much, Dave. That's very generous.
Well, we're here for you.
All right. Okay, so we're a little bit after 2. So what's new? I think, let's see, Mary's with us. Are we missing anybody? I don't think we're missing.
Yeah, Senator Morgan.
Oh, John.
He's here.
You just stopped on.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
terrific.
Hi,
Hey,
hi,
John.
Sorry,
And
technical
Jesse and
difficulty.
Drew are here. Awesome. So thanks,
Hi,
guys.
where are you? I can't have no volume.
Oh,
We can
What
hear
do
you.
I
we
need
can
to
hear you,
do?
Barbara. And I saw you earlier. You can't hear?
I don't know what the sound, oh yeah, but I don't know what that is. Guess
What is
what?
it?
I got it. Bye. Got it.
Oh.
Bye.
All right. Barbara, are you with us?
I am sorry. I just had to take a phone call.
Oh, okay. All right. So great. Then we'll get this thing going. Let me just move a couple things around on my screen. Good. So today's November 30th, 2020. Just a little bit after 2 o'clock, and we'll call to order the Commission to Study School Funding. And as we've done since we began meeting remotely in April by the governor's emergency orders, we'll start with a roll call of our members and also introduce our team from Carsey and team from American Institutes for Research. And I'll start it off. Dave Luno here in Hopkinton with Ozzie, the long-haired dachshund. Mel Myler.
Mel Myler calling in from Kentucky, New Hampshire.
Great, thanks, Mel. And Dick Ames.
Dick Ames here in Jeffrey in my home office alone.
Great, thanks, Dick. And Rick Ladd.
Here in Haverhill, New Hampshire, alone. My wife's in the kitchen.
All right, thanks, Rick. And Jay Kahn.
Present in Stoddard, family elsewhere in the house.
Okey doke. And John Morgan.
Here in Exeter and have my 5-year-olds in the room with me.
Great, thanks, John. And Bill Ardinger.
Yes, Bill Ardinger here in Concord, loving to meet John, Senator Morgan's staff member there with him, and I'm alone in my office.
Great, thank you, Bill. And Jane Bergeron.
Jane Bergeron, I'm here in Litchfield at my home with my husband elsewhere in the house.
Okay, thanks, Jane. And Corinne Cascadden.
Corinne Cascadden in my home office in Berlin, New Hampshire by myself.
Thanks, Corinne. And David Ryan.
Here in SAU 16 home office in Exeter, all alone.
Great, thanks, Dave. And John Beardmore.
Good afternoon. I am alone in Hopkinton. I do apologize in advance. I've got somebody doing some service work at my house, so I'm going to have to jump off a couple times here and there, but good to see you all.
I love the reverb, John. Iris Estabrook.
Hi, I'm in Portsmouth, family in the other room.
Great, thanks, Iris. Barbara Tremblay.
Hi, everyone. Barbara Tremblay and Keene, husband's in the other room, and I finally have audio and video. Yay.
Yay. So great. Thanks, Barbara. And Chris Dwyer.
I am alone in my Portsmouth office.
Great. Thanks, Chris. And Susan Heward.
Hi, Susan Heward, alone in this room, husband in another room in Hooksett.
Great. Thanks, Susan. And Val Zanchuk.
Alone in my office in Jaffrey.
Great. Thanks, Val. And Mary Heath.
Mary Heath here in Manchester, and my husband's in the other room.
Great. Thanks, Mary. And then we've got our team from Carsey with Carrie Portry.
Hey, Carrie Poetry. I'm in my car waiting for some COVID tests in Durham. I'm by myself.
Okay. Thanks, Carrie. And Jordan Hensley.
Jordan Hensley here in Dover. My fiance is in the other room.
Great. Thanks, Jordan. And Bruce Mallory.
Yeah, good afternoon. Present at my home office alone in Kittery, Maine.
Great, thanks, Bruce. And then we've got our esteemed crew from our researchers at AIR, Drew Atchison.
Hey, Drew Atchison in Washington, D.C. I don't anticipate having to say too much today, but I just wanted to hop on and be here for the last meeting and say thank you to all of you for allowing us to be part of this process.
Great, thanks, Drew. And Jesse Levin.
And this is Jesse Levin. I'm calling from Pacifica, California. My family's upstairs, distance learning and such. And yeah, I just wanted to be in on this last meeting, just to and also thank you. It's been a wonderful experience, and I hope that the work that we've done has been informative.
Great, thanks, Jesse. So let's see, Jordan, how are we looking as far as access and everything's going?
Looking good. We have 18 attendees on the line with us today, have not received word of any issues.
Okay, terrific. Well, I didn't really have anything particularly earth-shattering to announce at our last meeting, at least not at this stage of it. So hopefully we'll have good announcement, as we get towards through our meeting and through our discussion of the final report and acceptance of the final report, and then I think we'll have some opportunity to sort of go around the room and say some things. But the thing that's really striking me right now, and maybe some members will sort of associate with this, but I feel the same way right now as I felt at the last meeting where I was president of our local Hopkinton Rotary. So what they say in Rotary is that the best job is past president, and so I'm really looking forward to this meeting, and I just have the same feeling inside that I had at the last meeting. Really, having spent an enormous amount of time with everybody here and working on this, so I'm really looking forward to publishing the fruits of our labor together, and and going forward with that. So anyway, we'll start with a quick look-see at the minutes from our meeting last Monday, November 23rd. So if everyone's had a chance to give them a perusal, I'd take a motion to accept the minutes from the commission's meeting held November 23rd, 2020, moved by Myler.
Second.
Okay.
Seconded by Tremblay. So is there further discussion, changes, amplifications, deletions, edits, anything anybody wants to make on this? So Jordan, thanks so much for all your work on minutes. I know Carrie's done a lot. Bruce has done some. They do become the official record of these meetings, but I really do think that the fact that we swung into Zoom mode and have archived video of and audio of these meetings really does help to sort of bring forward the sort of the fidelity and impact of what we did each day. So anyway, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor is presented. Oh, we got to do a roll call. Sorry. Luno, yes. Myler.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Ladd.
Yes.
Khan.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Ardinger.
Yes.
Bergeron.
Yes.
Escad.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
Beardmore.
Yep.
Estabrook.
Yes.
Tremblay.
Yes.
Dwyer.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Zanchuk.
Yes.
Heath.
Yes.
All right. So we got that part out of the way. See, what are we looking at next? All right. So now I think we want to get into really the heart of what today's meeting is about, which is review and approval of the final report. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with a motion And once that motion's been made and seconded, we'll open it up for discussion. I think at this point, all of us have read these passages so many times. I know my eyes are blurry at this point at that, and hopefully we're down to, if there are little things, percentages that are off by a hair or a tweak here or a tweak there. I hope that's what we're dealing with. But obviously, if there's something substantive that you feel isn't backed or is just not presented properly, we're not wordsmithing, but we want to have it. We obviously the accuracy of this report is important. So anyway, the motion that I'll take here is a motion to accept the final report as a fair and accurate representation. Actually, Bruce, do you have this in writing? So the motion to accept the final report as a fair and accurate representation of the Commission's work and deliberations, as satisfactory completion of the Commission's charge, and as ready to be delivered to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the President of the Senate Clerk, the House Clerk, the Governor, and the State Library, as defined in the statute that established this commission. So, Bill, would you like to move that forward?
I raised my hand because I think it's a very well-drafted motion, and I'm sure I'll have a chance to talk to my wonderful commission members after the motion, but I would like to move the motion to accept as it's written on the shared page right now.
Great, thank you, Bill. And is that seconded by Senator Estabrook?
Yes, thank you, Dave. I was about to say that. I second that motion.
Great, thanks very much, Iris. And so with that, we can sort of take the motion down and thinking we just sort of open it up to what we just talked about in reviewing the report. So if anybody would like to, any of the members would like to make a comment, please I can see everybody, so just wave your hand like that, and we'll move forward through it.
Bill, as the maker of the motion, should probably have the first shot.
Oh, sure. Bill, if you'd like to speak to your motion or make a comment, absolutely.
I'd be happy to do it. I just want to make sure, and I'll start, but I make sure. My first comment is to say to the executive leadership of this commission, that is Chair Dave Luno, Mel Myler, and Jay Kahn, how much I appreciate as one member the incredible amount of work that you three did, all of whom have personal lives where you have things you've got to do. You're also elected members of the legislature, which means you have special pressures and challenges to deal with. All the members on this commission have a tremendous amount of things that they've got to face. We're just listening to Superintendent Ryan trying desperately to keep public schools open during this very tough time. But I think the executive leadership in particular, I would like to offer for the record a tremendous thanks and appreciation and Zoom round of applause for the work that you did to help us through this period of time. And I'd like to start my remarks with that. So please.
Great. Well, everybody deserves a round of applause for this. This has been a team effort the entire way, and we couldn't have had it any other way. So thanks very much, Bill.
I'd also like to very much thank the Carsey Institute team, Dr. Mallory, his fellow colleagues, Jordan and Carrie, who are wonderful. And you guys did incredible organizing work on a very tough topic and 3 tracks. And I thank you for that. And I'd like to just do a Zoom round of applause. And and finally, we got to thank the AIR team, Drew and Jesse. You know, the opportunity that I had as one member to Google search all the incredible work and analysis that Bruce Baker, Jesse, Drew. I still remember when I found Drew's most recent analysis on protecting New York public schools from the almost certain decline in total spending that they're going to face post-COVID. Saw Drew's work out front trying to encourage a principle of fairness as New York considers how to deal with that decline in revenues was wonderful. So thank you to the AIR team from one member. Really appreciate the chance to work with you on that. Finally, I'll be brief. I'm very pleased to support this final report. It is unlikely that it's going to be satisfactory to everyone on all points. School funding is too big an issue. It's a core issue in our state. It's the most important public priority measured by many measures, but certainly measured by spending total public sector resources, state, local, federal. The money that we spend on public education makes it the top priority in our state. And I think that it's been an honor to work on the commission, and I'm proud to ultimately cast a vote in favor of this motion. One thing I wanted to focus on, and it's right in the executive summary, and I think it's going to make a difference. The concept of an organizing principle is, what is that core assumption that helps one organize a very complex system into some cohesive program? Organizing principle exists in a whole different, lots of sets, but in education funding, which is complex, we have to choose an organizing principle. As I read the report and the executive summary, and I've joked with my graph, I see the organizational principle on page 8, which is, first and foremost, New Hampshire, adopt a program which distributes education resources, public education resources, in a fairer, more progressive manner that helps address the clear problem we're facing, which is outcomes for students in poorer districts are lower than outcomes in students who live in wealthier districts. That organizing principle came through loud and clear in AIR's work to the commission. And to me, with the experience I've had with education funding in the past, the failure for all of the different interest groups to come together in a cohesive, coordinated plan has been to lack that single organizing principle. And I support this report because I think it's loud and clear that even though there are many other issues, what type of taxes should be used, what should the role of charter schools be, how much delegation should be made to local districts versus keeping it at the state level, many issues. But if the organizing principle is going to be, let's measure any change by how it impacts the fairness of the distribution, I think we've got a chance to improve New Hampshire's situation. And I think the commission's report will help in that regard. And I thank you all for the chance to work with you.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Well, since that was sort of a combination of having made the motion and sharing some ideas and thoughts and feedback on it, I'd like to extend that same to Iris, who seconded the motion, should she wish to make any statements or share some thoughts.
Well, thank you, Bill, for all you just said, and I agree with. I'll be brief. I laid out the particular points in my statement that's attached to the report about where I still have some questions and concerns, but I support the work of the commission as a really honest and thoughtful look at the issues. School funding, as Bill said, is very complex, combination of education policy and fiscal policy in an area where the public good is at stake and the future of our children are at stake. So there's no more important work. I've really enjoyed being part of it again. I really had a great chuckle when Dave was sharing that Rotary sentiment about being past president, past chair. That's how I entered this journey. And it's been wonderful to be part of the next chapter. And I will follow along and hope that student equity and taxpayer equity win out in the end in whatever form. And thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Oh, thank you very much, Iris, for sharing those words. So, all right. So the floor is open to any others that want to either share some thoughts on the report as a whole, or get down to something that might be off by 0.5 or 0.5 or 0.0005 or something like that. I'll give you a for instance here. So last night when I was giving this my, I don't know how many times I've read this. I'm reading in the early stages, early pages of the 170 whatever page report about how the state share being 32%, and then 31%. And then later on in the tables that we did in the examples, and actually in some of the examples that Bill talks about in the Mass 70 context, 32%. And my wife actually picked up on it. She goes, "Is it 31% or 32%?" And I'm like, oh. And I think in a moment of just being tired, I put it on a list of like my list of nitpicky items, but having a little bit more energy and clarity this morning, and breaking out my my HP11C, and I wanted Bill to respond to the HP11C because only a calculator like that could get this job done. It's 31% when looking at the total of all spending, local, state, federal. It's 32% when just looking at the state local share by itself. And so if there are things like that we need to get on. In fact, I think I emailed Jordan a little while ago on that. So but that would be my one sort of example of a nitpicky Luno comment. There you go. Val's got it. Yeah.
Actually,
Awesome.
that's a 12C, but it's the same basic.
Yep. RPN.
Yep. And I've had this for 35 years and it still works. So.
Well, that was Hewlett Packard in those original days, starting in the garage, and yeah, just awesome products. So all right, what else we got? Oh, Dick, I see a hand, and then Jay. Dick, did you have your hand up?
Who did you say, Dave?
Dick, yeah, you.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't mind your nitpicking on 32 versus 31. And I think it's what has helped us to get to where we are. But also, I think at the other end of the extreme, there's a lot of wisdom and good judgment that has guided us as well. And so I'm appreciative of that, not only to you, but all the others that have joined in this effort. And I fully share Bill Ardinger's and Iris's statement that this is a truly complex, but truly important subject that we have wrestled with, and I think done as well as we could. We put a lot of time into it. We could have put a lot more time into it, And this last month, particularly for Dave and all the others that are at the helm, have been intense. So here we are. So I just wanted to emphasize these things. One is that the finding that overall New Hampshire does well with public education, but when you break it out into its parts, its communities, it's not such a pretty picture. And it's that not such a pretty picture that we've been focused on and worked hard to try to see what we could do about it. And that's what our recommendation is all about. And so it's easy for somebody to look in at New Hampshire and say, oh, what are you worried about? You know, you're spending all this money and your outcomes are better than practically any other place. So no worry. Well, we know there's a lot to worry about. And I think the work of AIR, and thank you AIR for all that you've done, have documented that. So that's the starting point. And then the tough slog is how do you get to a better place? And I think we've said that to start with, we need to underscore principles. What are the guideposts that will measure how we're doing? And in the broadest possible sense, we've said student equity and taxpayer equity are sort of at the core of making this work. It's starting with student equity, and then you get into taxpayer equity. And I think I'm thankful that this commission has stayed focused on both of those principles throughout. And staying focused on them means it's harder to get to a conclusion because the distribution right now is bad, and the way to get to a better distribution faces all sorts of obstacles. So all of that's important to recognize. I endorse the formulation developed by AIR, and the starting point for that was student performance and current spending, and putting those two together into a model, the simulator that we have. And the one worry I have about that is a worry that's expressed well by Bill Ardinger in his statement. And I just wanted to say that I agree with that concern. I don't think there should be an interpretation attached to our acceptance or adoption, whatever the words were, of the AIR report, that all of what is there under the concept of adequacy has to be funded entirely by the state. I don't think that's true. And I think that brings me to the Massachusetts experience that we've looked closely at. I think it's an experience that we can all learn from. It's not ideal what they've done either, but they've got a different way of adding in, providing for locally raised funds that ensures as much as is practical, uniform burdens on local taxpayers. And I think using local property tax revenues as part of the revenues that pay for the whole thing is appropriate when done in that way. So I just wanted to endorse that piece. I think with that, that really is where I wanted to leave it. This is a great start. We know that implementation will be truly difficult. I'm one of those on this commission that's a legislator. We'll bite off pieces of it and slog ahead, starting with perhaps with just trying to make the property tax more fair through a system that ensures that low income property taxpayers and perhaps renters are treated equitably or provided relief. And so off we go. And thanks so much to everybody.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much, Dick. And Jay.
Thank you, David. This has been a great journey for you, David, Mel, me, and all the other legislators who were in the formation of this commission to see it come to this point. I picked up the other day the list of narrative with last November after the budget had been signed. And while all the gratitude that was shared before, I want to share back with the public members of this group. There were probably 100 names on that list, and lots of them could have filled the roles that folks filled. But I got to compliment those who have served and held down other roles and not legislatively felt obliged to represent their communities in this commission. Without exception, this has been the best attended, and I would say without a doubt, the best attended commission that there is in the state. Everybody wanted to keep up with the flow of information and not fall behind. And I really think that that has enabled us to respect each other and the findings in this report. So I see the voice of many reflected in it, and that's a tribute to everybody participating. I really thank the Carsey School for having harnessed that voice for the commission and the public voice that comes through in the report, and certainly the expertise of IR that bring us to this. The nitpicky point, Dave, that I want everyone to recognize, this is the fiscal 22 and fiscal 23 biennium that we're trying to influence. And if I can build off of that with a personal, that, you know, we did well in this current biennium to restore stabilization funding and add disparity aid. That really helped a lot of school districts around the state, particularly those that needed the help based on free and reduced lunch and things that add student need. But we can't keep adding to a formula and make right that which is basically flawed, that allocates essentially the same state aid on the basis of students as opposed to student needs or community capacity to raise revenues. We can demonstrate the harm in this allocation. We did that through this study, and we can demonstrate it through outcome measures that demonstrate that those who spend less have poorer outcomes. And it's sometimes because of the characteristics of the district, sometimes characteristics of the students. But in the end, they just spend less, and the opportunity for an adequate education is not fair and equal across the state. We need to unsnarl the pile of education funding statutes that have perpetuated over a long period of time. To make state policy simple, and as the engagement committee work group found, people just don't understand education funding in the state. We've made it so complicated with the interlocking statements that have caps and that avoid this but add that back, and you know, hold harmless. Then it's hold harmless for the last 10 years. It doesn't make sense, and we can go forward with something that is far simpler, that directs state assistance going to communities with greater student needs and provides every student in every district an opportunity to achieve an adequate education. That is a unifying theme that we ought to be able to all agree to, and then find the method to fund it. I think we've identified how to level the playing field for students with varying needs and districts that have different capacities to raise the funds to meet those. And I look forward to being able to share this information with our legislative colleagues, with the governor, and see where we can make accommodations over this next biennium to do what this commission has asked in its last meeting, to make sure that we get on track with a new funding formula that provides fairer opportunities for every student in every district in this state. I support this motion because I believe it sets us in that direction.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jay, very much for sharing those words. Barbara, I see your hand up.
Just a few thoughts that I'd like to share. It has been a wonderful experience to have worked on this commission and to see some familiar faces I've not seen in a few years, and see a lot of new faces as well. I had a wonderful opportunity in my career to work in two very different systems. SAU 29, where I was superintendent, we had 7 districts, 7 boards, 32 contracts, a lot of schools, etc. And then SAU 62, which was a regional school district that had 5 towns. All of this was very informative through my years to how to work, make sure our students had what they needed, try to provide over the years with the help of our communities and staff and parents and students, all that we needed to provide. Through this process, not only working with all of you and hearing your input, but also the public comment I found very insightful, and reading those and hearing those throughout these several months has been very interesting to me. It's kind of what I had lived, and to hear the thoughts and the feelings of the various groups, from taxpayers to students to teachers to staff to board members, all of it was wonderful and very insightful. It really helped me think every time we got together to meet very important aspects of the work we were doing. Still, for me, number one, of course, was the opportunity for our students, making sure that it was equitable, that what they had in one area, one system, 5-10 miles down the road, they did not have any of that. And I found that difficult all these years and still do. So for me, that was a number one priority, is trying to figure out a way for equitable opportunities for our students, while certainly considering equity for our taxpayers. So all of that was a very important aspect. I worked and really, I had an opportunity to, I love statistics, I'm weird, I know. But I did do a number of factors in some of the work that Drew had sent to us, and figured out various towns and so forth. I find that while it may be a challenging way to look at our funding, it seems to work. One of my nitpicking thing is, don't fool around with these formulas and weightings, because if you do, it's going to throw everything out. And so I put that in my little statement too, that cannot happen, or otherwise it won't work. I want to make sure that this is put into place sooner rather than later, but that it be monitored, not in 5 years or 10 years, really, but by a yearly basis. We need to know, are we making any gains? We need to watch it, understand what the figures are telling us each year. And that will be something that DOE and maybe DHHS, I'm not sure, combination, DRA even. There are ways that they can look at this to look at not only the school success, the student success, but the property values. There are a number of areas that need to be looked at, and I think they have to be. That has got to be a commitment that goes along with this whole aspect. It may be challenging. I think the work has been commendable. I've been so impressed with everybody's input. AIR has been wonderful. Some thoughts certainly I had never thought of, and to see some of these things come together has been really incredible. I certainly affirm and endorse this proposal. I think it's excellent. I'm very honored again to have been a member of this commission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and thanks for all your effort and energy on this. It's been great to work with you, and everyone's really brought, I think, so much to this from their own personal and professional experiences, and the networks that they're members of, to really help inform this work. And I think like what Dick, I think, suggested, this could have gone on, forever, in terms of hearing about everything. But we've reached today. So after 11 months of a lot of work. So who wants to go next with Corinne? Thanks.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I feel that this final report is an incredible summary of facts and details on school funding. I truly valued participation in the commission because everyone brought their A game. Everyone was serious about it, and everybody, had their opinions. And I felt like I learned so much from hearing the different perspectives. I come not from a broad perspective, but walking the shoes after a 10-year stint as a superintendent and closing 3 buildings, laying off staff, cutting budgets. It's very difficult, to keep operations going, as you know. So I hope that this report is going to be the catalyst for some major changes. I'd like to be hopeful. And I guess, thank you to the legislators for having put the time and to move this crusade forward. And I think that, the next steps are really falling on your backs to be able to keep ringing that bell and to keep, plodding forward. And anything I can do to help, I can certainly do so. So thank you.
Corinne, thanks so much for those comments. And as you know, too, the legislative work is also a team effort too. And you were certainly, you and Paul were certainly part of that team this last legislative session, which really, I mean, certainly it wasn't something that is anything like what we've learned during this journey, but it was one of the biggest improvements in support for public education funding in, I don't know how many, I mean, maybe forever, but and that required a lot of effort to to garner that that strong bipartisan support for that. And in the end of the day, that's what it's going to take going forward here too. No matter who's, I mean, it doesn't matter who's in the the corner office or who controls House and Senate chambers. This has got to be something that is durable over time and can withstand changes in political leaders, yet still provide reliable, predictable, sufficient, fair funding of our schools. So who wants to go next? Chris.
I'll just echo, I won't add to the appreciation for all the heavy lifting that went on behind the scenes. I know we can imagine some of it, but I'm sure there's a lot more of it that we can't imagine that was done by the Carsey folks and leadership. I think this report is actually coming at an optimal time. I think the pandemic has really exposed to people all over the country that there are inequities built into all of our funding systems, as well as inequities that have to do with other community factors that affect schools. So it may actually be coming at an optimal time for people to realize both the importance that schools play, not only in the education of students, but in many other ways for parents and many other kinds of supports for communities. I'll just say a few words about the two pieces that I added. I think the student equity and the taxpayer equity have been good guideposts, and I think the first we undoubtedly spent a great deal more time on, which I think was appropriate given that the charge of the commission was really foundational to figure out student equity. I think it's on very solid grounds with the work that AIR did, and that it reflects the philosophy, the values of the commission members, whether or not we all agree with some of the details. I don't think we have done as good a job on taxpayer equity, and I think much more needs to be done along those lines to figure out some of the nuances of the system. It might be a slightly different mix of folks who would look at that, but there are a lot of unanswered questions that I think that our system, our property tax system rests on, that really need to be examined. I like the way Jay said to really rethink all of these laws that affect education and simplify. And I think probably with taxpayer equity, it's reflecting on how they all fit together. It probably won't be simplifying, but I do think to hold up taxpayer equity with the same level that we've held up student equity, more work needs to be done. And then a piece that I wrote that Bruce has added as an appendix, you know, money is necessary, but it's not going to do the whole trick, as we all know. And a lot more work needs to be done along those lines. And in that piece, what I tried to separate were three kinds of measures to look at the system going forward. One, obviously, is the composite measure on which the ECM model is based, and the measures that are in there are collected by the state, are required, et cetera. There's nothing wrong with them, but they are not the same as learner success from a consensus-based approach. I take issue with the complication of learner success that was written in the report. I think that is not the way to measure this type of, to resist making it sort of the cat box of outcomes, not the way to go. But we do need to do some consensus-based work on what would be adequate measures of learner success that everybody could buy into. And then third, I separate those from yet additional accountability measures that will be needed in the short term. I think Barbara was the one who talked about measures in the short term. Yes, I think that's right, but learner success, we can already know that it will look like a failure if we try to measure learner success too soon. You know, you're not going to get better teachers by just giving them all a raise. It's going to take a lot more than that. So what kinds of accountability measures we need in the short run, I think a lot of work needs to be thought about that so that we are making good use of the investments. And I think that's a really important part of public will that Massachusetts has really gotten right, that the public needs confidence that the additional dollars that they're contributing are being invested wisely. And that rests with our state agency. But we have to have some consensus about what those accountability measures will be. And they don't only rest on learner success, the bottom line measures.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I think you're absolutely right on that. And even though I think we've got a long way to go as far as that work and really sort of developing that, I think we've laid the groundwork for a good quality process, and that's something I think that through the outcomes, through improved ways of being able to measure that, through the education cost model that's obviously driven by that. It's from an engineering perspective, it's a strong feedback loop on it, and I think really an enormous move in the right direction. And it's a move that also, I think, provides continuous improvement and puts us on the right, the right path forward there too. So, more. Who wants to go next? Jane.
Thanks, Dave. Certainly, I too would like to begin by saying how much I've enjoyed the opportunity to participate on the commission and have found it to be a true learning professional experience for me, and want to thank all of the commission members for the opportunity. In regards to the report, I find it to be a thoughtful document that's based on real solid research, which is something that we have really been lacking. From my perspective, I'm hopeful that the report is going to lead us to access and equity for all of New Hampshire's children and youth. And this is particularly important for our marginalized students, such as our students with disabilities. I certainly would like to applaud the public for all of their input and guidance and feedback that they have provided to us. They have been with us all the way in a variety of different manners, and it has shown us how important this topic is for all of us as we bring the recommendations forward. And lastly, I would certainly echo on the things that Chris just said about monitoring and having multiple strategies and ways of doing that over time. It's going to be critical for that to be a part of the next phase of all of this once we get it off the ground and running. So again, want to thank all of you and the opportunity to participate in the commission.
Great, thank you, Jane, for sharing those words. Susan, I see a hand up.
Probably one of the quietest members of the group. Thank you. Thank you to the leadership and to AAR and to the UNH folks. This has been a real education for me, because even though my work is in education, higher education might as well be called something different, because none of this is anything that I knew about. And I appreciated hearing and watching people struggle to put things into words and formulas and so on. I'll express a particular thanks to Mel Myler, because I'm very influenced by the Robert Putnam book, Our Kids. And you made that point clearly and often. Your kids become our kids in the community college level. And when I think about how we spend the public funds that are generously allocated to the community college system, we've been spending a lot of money helping everybody to come to a place where they can learn whatever it is they're choosing to learn. And if we as a state can figure out the student equity piece and the student access piece, then I honestly think it will also play out in many positive ways for public higher ed in the state. And not only do I think about the student equity side, I do think about the taxpayer equity side too. You know, the community college students, the average age is 26. They're taxpayers. And, you know, they're very close to having first had the money spent for them to go through K-12, and now they're in a position where they're spending the money. I appreciate the work that this commission has done to demonstrate the commitment of the state. The civic engagement of the state is overwhelming to me as somebody who's lived other places. So I just thank you. Thank you for the education. I've been sharing it with the presidents of the 7 colleges. I want to sort of tip my hat to Val Zanchuk and to Rick Ladd for how they've represented the technical student side, the CTE students, because those are certainly about 25% of who comes to the community colleges as well. And I just appreciate people's efforts to come up with something that is equitable on multiple levels. So thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Susan. And thanks for all your input along the way and active engagement on this. I mean, one of the things I think we knew right from the beginning and why why it was so important to have you as part of this commission is the close linkage between our public school system and the community college system. And having been obviously close with the NHTI board for a long time, I've been through so many of those conversations about, oh, what's the connection between the math expected when you enter the community college system and what the public education system is able to deliver on a reliably consistent basis. And I think while obviously our work didn't center on math, expectations in math, it certainly moves it in the right direction, and which is good for all of us. So
It does, and it also, the ELL community, particularly for our southern cities and towns, that's a big concern.
Yeah.
We can't find ourselves in a place where we've got a whole group of people who aren't able to work to full capacity because we haven't offered them what they need in order to do that.
Right. Great. Thanks so much, Susan.
Thank you.
Let's see, who would else like to share some thoughts? Val.
Yeah, I spent the weekend binge watching The Queen's Gambit, and I think of our challenge here is very similar to a giant chess game that we playing white here had a very unconventional and bold opening to our game based on the equity model. And we've developed our game fairly well, and now I guess it's up to our legislators to conclude the end game here to the finality of this thing. But I mean, even seeing everybody on my screen here, you've got about 1/4 of a chessboard, and we're all pieces in that game. And I think it was well played, and the game has been very interesting and informative and very powerful. And so I'm looking forward to the end game of the educational funding and to see how it goes.
Great. Thanks, Val. Thanks for all of the support you brought to the commission and for sharing your words there. All right. Who else would like to add some thoughts on where we've been, where we're going? Dave Ryan.
Am I the last to go? I apologize.
No. I mean, there's still more. Do you want to be last?
No. You never know when that phone's going to ring and I have to log off again. I've really appreciated being on this commission. I've never been an elected official, so I didn't understand how delicate, how intense the legislative process can be, particularly when it comes to a topic as hotly debated as school funding in New Hampshire. I want to tag along on Mel's adoration for Robert Putnam. I follow Robert Putnam. I read a lot of what he writes. I pay a lot of attention to what economists are writing and who he's referring to. The concern that I've developed over time is this issue of the big trade-off, which is mentioned in the book, and that is sacrificing equity for efficiency, and what it looks like moving forward as this plan becomes unveiled, and how we move it forward, and how legislators then take it and move it forward and implement over the next couple of years. As a dad of a student who is in Manchester Public Schools and a superintendent who is not in Manchester Public Schools, I see two different worlds. I live them every day. I see a significant number of staff members who are committed to students in both districts. However, the economics of efficiency are what really hurts a place like Manchester, because they are so lacking in what they need in order to provide the same opportunity as we're able to do here at Exeter High School or a cooperative middle school, that students who are coming up through the system don't have a fair shot from the very, very beginning. You know, we've heard of this anecdote or this saying that, you know, there are people who get born on third base and say they hit a triple. And if that's the case for all of our academic districts, we have kids in Manchester, in Nashua, and in the North Country and out west who aren't even on the team. They're not even in the game. And how we don't recognize that through a funding model, I think is more about a belief system in the state, not an economics issue. So as a dad and as a superintendent, my heart goes out to families who are consistently trying to do what's in the very best interest of their child, which I think Chris said it very eloquently. The pandemic has really shown that ugly head of not just the haves and have-nots, because the haves have also been hurt, but we have so many inequities that have been uncovered based on something like a pandemic. You don't even know where to begin because you can't use the normal routes to address them. I've learned an incredible amount for the time that I've been able to be on the commission. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity and appreciate the flexibility of leadership and letting me take the time that I needed, as we all have had to make sure that our professional lives during the day, our responsibilities were being met, particularly from April through May and June. And so I just greatly appreciate the opportunity to have been a part of this. I want to thank Bruce for allowing me to submit a member statement a bit tardy. He's going to mark me down. I won't get full credit. I'm good with that. I own that. Just hopefully I can be an instrument for this group as well as the legislature as we move forward. I certainly would still like to be an active voice in how we're funding our schools in New Hampshire.
Great, David. Thanks so much. And yeah, we will certainly need that continued active voice, you know, from you know, all of us from time to time. And that's actually one of the things I think we're going to be start to talk about towards the end of the meeting today. So thanks so much, Dave. And I'm in regular contact with our superintendent here in Hopkinton. I know how difficult it's been for you. I know how difficult it is for him. And I know how challenging this work has been. And for you to be able to juggle both of those, I think is just a tremendous thing to do. So thank you for all your hard efforts on this. Okay, John.
Thank you. Just really very briefly, I want to say thank you to every one of you. I too have learned an incredible amount, and this has been a pretty exceptional experience for me, and you all have seen me juggle the being a parent and a legislator and a commission member simultaneously, and it just really reflects the importance of the work that that all of us are doing, and that so many parents are going through right now. So I'm very hopeful, cautiously optimistic that the work that has been done on this commission will lead to some of the very important changes that the people of New Hampshire deserve to have for the educational system and the equity that the students are lacking from depending on which zip codes they're from. So thank you to each and every one of you. It's been an honor and a privilege.
John, thanks so much. It's been great working with you, and it will be great to continue working with you, as we move this forward. And there's certainly a lot of work ahead of us. So really looking forward to continue that effort with you. So thanks so much, John. All right, Mary, I see your hand up.
Thank you, David. And I just want to echo the thanks to everybody. I don't see today as a closing or an ending of this process. I think David's comments and Chris's comments really look at the needs of the children across the state. And, you know, speaking as a person who's lived in Manchester all my life, and watched my children and now my grandchildren go through Manchester schools, the difference from the days when I was a little baby teacher, 20 years old, 21 years old in the classroom, and the changes that have transpired in our school system. I think we have a lot of work to do still in looking at how children learn, how we measure how they learn. And I think that's kind of the next step. I think the conversation that we're just finishing is a critically important one, but we can't compromise our children. And I don't want to say compromise because we had to do this first part first, but we have to really look at what our kids are learning, how they're learning it, and to the extent to which they are. So for me, this is just the beginning of the next chapter of a lot more work that we have to do. And just I'm currently working on an international study committee about learning and looking at countries across the world. And there are so many things that we have learned in New Hampshire that I think we can incorporate, but we still have to find some consistent ways to carry the learning and looking at how deeply children are learning in our state. So again, thank you very much. And I don't want to go on, but great work on everybody's part. And I just am deeply gratified and truly hopeful that the Education Committee will begin that process this coming session. And then those of us, I hope I'll be in the Finance Committee, we can help to make that happen. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Mary. And you know, your commitment to not just this process, but public education in New Hampshire has just been extraordinary. And you know, what you bring in terms of the knowledge, not just on the you know, your time, you know, at the department, your time on the Education Committee, but your time on finance. It all works together, so it has to work together. So thanks so much, Mary. All right, who else would like to add some words to this part? Mel.
Well, I guess ditto to what everybody else has said, and you all have done great work. As I was listening, I was kind of reflecting on this issue of school finance. And this really started back in 2018, when Rick Ladd and I sponsored a bill that called for a study, a governance, a legislative study of school finance. And during the summer of 18, we did meet. I was concerned when the meeting started, however, when the chairman said that we weren't going to deal with disparity or SWEP. And it said to me immediately that, well, maybe we're just going to continue to tinker with this thing called school funding. At the conclusion of that work, and I will say that the committee did do a lot of work. The Chairman Umberger did a great job in gathering all kinds of information that was local, et cetera. But I felt that the recommendations continued to tinker on the outside, at the edges of this topic. And I filed a minority report that said we needed an independent commission. So in the next legislative session, I introduced House Bill 551. I was the sole sponsor. Nobody else co-sponsored. I was there by myself. And I was thinking, as you guys were talking today, about standing in the well of the House, introducing 551, and basically saying, oh, by the way, this 551 is going to have $500,000 attached to it. And in the well, I said, I have no idea whether or not $500,000 is the right amount. It's a shot in the dark. That's an end quote. But an interesting thing happened. This became a bipartisan bill because of the need to look at this topic. It went to the Senate, passed by the Senate. Went to the Budget Committee, passed the Budget Committee. Nobody questioned the $500,000. Went to the governor to sign the budget bill. We got to where we are here today. And I had no clue, frankly, what an independent commission would be. My goal was to provide multiple voices into this conversation, not just legislative voices, but people from the community, people who could bring their sense of experience in an unbiased fashion. And whatever biases we brought, we basically put them at the door when we walked in to have the conversation.
All right, what happened, Mel? I think, Mel, you're frozen. All right, we'll see if Mel comes back.
You can't stop
here we go.
now. I was right.
I know. All right, Mel. Oh, it's Mel. Can you hear us? All right, we're going to need to rewind Mel about a minute probably, and hopefully he'll know where to pick up from. All right, are you resetting him, Jordan, or?
No, it looks like that might be an internet issue on his end, and he dropped off.
Yeah, we've got a bad storm coming through right now, so a lot of heavy rain and stuff. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on. All right, Mel will join us in a little bit. Actually, while we're waiting for Mel to join us, there's some other people that need to be thanked in all this too, and you know, we've had a lot of thank yous going around, starting with some of our core team from AIR, Tammy Colby and Bruce Baker have just been extraordinary contributors to this work, and I think it's really important to acknowledge how much of that effort really relied on their input and their energy on it, and I think you know, Bruce certainly has written a lot of national you know, articles and briefs on education funding. Bill Ardinger happened upon one the other day while having coffee and forwarded it to me and said, I'm having coffee with Bruce Baker right now. So reading something just recently published about funding efforts in New Jersey. So so it was interesting to see that, and certainly Michelle's experience in Vermont, being so close to here. I remember when we were getting started on this, Michelle was like, "Oh yeah, I'll come down and testify and everything. I'm the person who's right nearby," and of course that was before everything went remote. And
that was Tammy, Dave. Tammy.
Oh, Tammy. I'm looking at. I'm saying Tammy Colby. That's what I meant. Sorry. So I was actually going to get to Michelle in just a minute. So, but many thanks to Tammy and Bruce. And then I think from the Carsey School, Michelle Shannon Holt was. Did I get the name right? Bruce.
That's Holt Shannon. It's okay.
Michelle Holt Shannon. I'm really just sort of writing these things down, you know, Michelle was really so helpful during the sort of I'd say the midterm period of this work. I think Carrie was doing some of her doctoral dissertation maybe, and Michelle really contributed. To help that public engagement effort. Same with Sarah Bogie, and has been tremendous on this, and she's probably in the same house with Jordan right now. Being Jordan's fiance, I think he's certainly been public about that. So many thanks to Sarah on that. And another last name that I'm not getting here, Bruce, is you have a research helper from Carsey that was helping with some of the you know, early work, pulling together different efforts.
Yeah. Matt Girding was doing his capstone in the Masters in Public Policy with us, and Matt provided an important piece of work early on, looking at legislative history.
Yeah, yeah. So many thanks to Matt on that. And then also want to recognize Jen Four with House Committee Services. She's also the committee researcher for the Education Committee. And Jen's been attending tons of these meetings, and do ping her every now and then, are we on track? What do we need to do? Let me know if there's anything that we're missing or that we need to make sure we address, particularly as we're at the final stretch, making sure that everything in the report is the way, any sort of, formalities need to be done, getting the transmittal letter formatted and done, and making sure that it gets distributed out to the people that need to receive this report tomorrow. Of course, it'll be on our website, but we want to make sure it gets delivered specifically to the people who by statute receive it tomorrow. So Jen, thanks for that. All right, where's Mel? Is he back yet? Okay. All right. Well, we'll do our best to hopefully get Mel back in shortly. Any other comments while we're here? We do need to get on to business, right? Oh, Rick, I see your hand. Rick, you're muted.
How about that?
All right.
Thank you very much. It's been fun listening to all the commission members today. And, to me, I have really mixed feelings on this whole process, because I feel we haven't gotten where we need to get. And I was just reading an article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal this last Friday, and it was titled "More Bang for the School Buck." And it addresses really those areas of early childhood education, K through 12, more of a holistic approach. 2-year colleges emphasizing no longer necessarily the degree, but the skill. And the 4-year colleges looking at more online, more Amazon type instruction. And I started then thinking, how's this all relate to what we're doing here today, trying to deal with the issue of how to eliminate these disparities, these inequities due to median family income differences throughout the state, to percentage of capacity of poverty, the ability to raise the dollars based upon the property taxes that we know that is a huge issue and presents more inequities both for the student and for the taxpayer. So where I'm coming from right now is that I'm not totally convinced that the education costing model is going to get us any closer than the old cost analysis model, which was more of an input-driven model that we came out of the 2008 and 2018 type studies. I feel that the most important issue is in front of us, the issue of dealing with the legislature and implementation, which some have spoken to today. That is a real hurdle. The hurdles are going up higher. They're not just short hurdles like you might see in the track and field events now. This is a big hurdle. This is like a high jump. And why I say that is that we haven't addressed really this revenue issue that is definitely going to be asked at the very beginning. Where does the money come from? And it's a challenge. It's a challenge because we know that there are a number of communities which don't have those resources. And I'm still not convinced whether we have a revenue issue or a distribution issue. I've also heard the question raised about phase-in. We don't have time for phase-in, folks. We're going through a monumental shift here in education throughout America and in our state. And we need to walk in there as legislators prepared to introduce legislation that's going to move us forward and support all communities in providing this education we want for all kids to be delivered to all kids. And I can tell you right now, I wrote in my minority report, I'm not in favor of either sales or a income tax. So that, eliminates that question in my mind. So then in implementation, this formula, this model is effective if you retain the various types of estimating costs that we have in there, the issues associated with the weight categories. By retaining those and not messing with them, you maintain the formula, the integrity of this formula. I cannot see the legislature not doing that. They're going to get in there and mess with formulas. And it always happens, whether it's done with the formula we had come out of 2008 or the formula we had 2018. I feel that I've asked a number of times, I don't have the answer to this. If we properly funded Senator Estabrook's formula, would we be in better turf today? Would we be able to do this and overcome some of those disparities and inequities if we'd stayed true to our formula? I feel we would be. We feel we would be. So I guess I'm realizing the next step for this is to go forward and be implemented somehow. I don't think it's ready for that yet. I think we have a number of issues which we did in 2018 too. Transportation, school building aid, special education, career technical education. Those are all significant factors that I believe that an input-based situation may help. However, it won't happen. It's going to have to be done by a categorical at grants, as we've talked about on this committee. However, we're going to have action, take action on that immediately. CTE programs cannot deliver the skills that our work climate is asking for right now, the number of people with these training backgrounds. So I just feel that we've done a great job in engaging the public, in hearing from the public, but I've heard that there are disparities and inequities. I knew that when I started. I just feel, where have we gone? And we're coming out with an education cost model that it's going to be very difficult to implement due to costs. And I guess I'll shut up right there, Dave. I want to thank again all the folks that have worked so hard on this. It's a great crew, and I appreciate all that effort and time. Zooming is not an easy deal. Yes.
Thanks, Rick, for your comments and sharing that. It's always great working with you, and I think you and I worked really well together this last session on big pieces of legislation, and looking forward to working with you on this as well. This is an issue. I mean, I think Mary talked about it. Others talked about it. People from around the state are really watching this, and it's an enormous thing, and it's not just the people in Haverhill and Hopkinton, our two towns, Rick, but it's people in Manchester and in Nashua, not just Berlin and Newport and other places that we talk about all the time, but the inequity that you've talked about is real. And I think what you talked about, and I support you completely, is the urgency to implement something, I think, is there. And, we heard it last week at the commission meeting. We made those changes to the report. Hopefully everybody, sees that reflected in the report, that the urgency of implementation for the benefit of Granite Staters and in their interest is really something that we're going to have to, as lawmakers, but also as all of us as team members and members of the public, to get around and work to make something happen that moves it forward. And that's, you know, that's the most important job, I think, going forward with this. Mel, you're back.
Well, yeah, I have no idea what's going on with my technology here, but anyway, so sorry I missed Rick's comments, but I was on a roll, so.
No, yeah, and we want you to get back on that roll.
Well, all I was trying to do was saying that when we created a commission, I had no clue what the commission was going to be, and frankly, it's gone way beyond what I could have imagined, and it has a lot to do with all the participants on the commission, as well as the Carsey School. I mean, I was saying to Bruce earlier, Bruce and I have had a long history together in a variety of different ways, and when we knew the commission was going to come forward, his name was the first one that came to my mind, primarily to be a member of the commission. I had no idea what the Carsey School was or what it did, and frankly, my compliments to him and Jordan and Carrie for all the work that they have done. But what we've done here is that my concern was when we created the commission, because I felt what we did in 2018 did not really hit the mark from a standpoint of dealing with all the kids in the state. And we knew that there was a marked difference in some districts versus other districts. That's what kids would have. And so as we began to start this work, that was where I began to think that we really need to try to shift the concept of thinking of my kids versus our kids. And the idea that if you're going to talk about workforce development, of which Val has been, both Val and Susan have been very much involved with that, you can't just worry about those kids coming from Bedford or Amherst or from Portsmouth, but you've got to worry about those kids all over the state, because that's where the workforce is coming from. And that's where the concept of our kids really came to my mind, as well as other readings that we've had. So I think the public issue, the moral issue here that the legislature is going to have to look at is that whether or not we are going to begin to look at all of our students across the state and look at that equity. And also regarding that, one of the things we found in our study was that the whole issue of taxpayer equity and some kind of taxpayer forgiveness, et cetera, hasn't been looked at in 20 years. And that came through the report from the DRA. And so I think as well as looking at the issue of a new way of funding schools based upon their need rather than their inputs, that I think that we also have to be very vigilant around the issue of taxpayer equity and dealing with abatements, deferral of taxes, whatever it might be. And David, you've done such a good job in using the example of the Molten Borough and the folks on the lake versus those that are 2 miles off the lake that are on a fixed income. We need to be very concerned about that. And the final comment I'd like to make is one, I'm very proud of the work that we all have done. And I think the report that we have is going to be foundational to future considerations on this topic. We have been very, very thorough. I don't think anybody's ever been as thorough as this group has been. And David, I want to particularly compliment you, not only as a friend, but as the chair. I knew early on when we were going to have this commission, you and I had talked about this, that we needed somebody that understood spreadsheets. And I know that spreadsheets are your friend. They're not my friend. But you've done a great job in looking at not only the numerical issues here, but also the policy issues here. And I really want to compliment you for keeping us straight and narrow and moving us forward. And I just want to thank everybody for the time that they put in. And I think we've laid the foundation. We've laid a thing that we need to begin to look at in a different way. And this is a different look at school funding than we've had before. And hopefully we'll be able to get some legislative action that can begin to really look at the issue of the disparities with which our students are facing across the state, as well as those taxpayers in those towns. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks for sharing those words, and thanks for your kind words on that. Certainly looked at a lot of spreadsheets over the last year, and you know, I now wear glasses, screen readers with the blue glare filter. There's been so much, yeah, the attack of the LCD. So, but anyway, we do this all in the name to move forward with good, equitable school funding plans. So, the sacrifice is worth it indeed. So, all right. So, anybody else want to add anything? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right. Seeing none, then we have a. Let's see, was there a hand up on that? We have a motion on the floor. And I'll read it again. Motion is to accept the final report as fair and accurate representation of the commission's work and deliberations, as satisfactory completion of the commission's charge, and is ready to be delivered to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the President of the Senate Clerk, the House Clerk, the Governor, and the State Library as defined in the statute that established this commission. So, in sort of listening to the comments going through, I'd actually like to start with the public members of the commission, and then go and we'll sort of tail into the legislative members, if that's all right with everybody. And to begin with, and I'm just looking at the list as I have it randomly laid out from when we all started back on January 13th. The first public member on my list is Bill Ardinger.
Thank you, Dave. I'd vote yes.
Thanks, Bill. And Jane Bergeron.
Thank you, Dave. I vote yes.
Thank you, Jane. And Corinne Cascadden.
Thank you, yes.
And thank you, Corinne. And David Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I vote yes.
Thank you, David. And John Beardmore.
Yes.
Thank you, John. And Iris Estabrook.
Yes.
Thank you, Iris. And Barbara Tremblay.
Thank you, Dave. Yes.
Thank you, Barbara. And Chris Dwyer.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. And Susan Heward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Thank you, Susan. And Val Zanchuk.
I vote yes.
Thanks, Val. And let's see, now I think we're moving into our, so Mary Heath, you're an alternate. I could take your vote and then we can just have it down as an alt.
Okay.
Or, I mean, that, so Mary Heath.
Mary Heath votes yes.
Thanks, Mary. And Mel Myler.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mel. And Dick Ames.
Yes, and thank you.
Thanks, Dick. And Rick Ladd.
No.
Thank you, Rick. And Jay Kahn.
Yes.
Thanks, Jay. And John Morgan.
Yes.
Thank you, John. And Dave Luno votes yes. So I think we're 16-1 with the alternate. So 15-1 formal. I mean, however we want to tally it. We'll make sure that that's reflected in the transmittal letter that goes along with the report, and it'll also obviously be in the notes of the commission. But the motion passes, and thanks all very much. Bruce, what's our plan for the report release?
Let's see, we'll remove that watermark from the report that says draft for discussion and repost it on the website so that it's accessible to the public. And tomorrow we will we'll formally convey the report with a cover letter from the chairman to recipients that were just listed in that motion. We'll do that sometime before noon tomorrow. And then the leadership has arranged for a press conference tomorrow at 1 o'clock, supported by the Speaker's office and the Senate President's office, so that we'll be inviting members of the press to listen to quick summaries and comments from the leadership of the commission and ask any questions. And so it's out there now, and will continue to be, and we'll be following it. As you know, the Carsey School will continue to support the commission. The commission does not end today, but don't worry, we haven't scheduled any future meetings of this group at this point. We'll see what the next legislative session chooses to do about the makeup of the commission and its role. But in the meantime, we will continue to support public engagement and discussion and dissemination of the report. There may be some additional analyses that the Carsey School can run over the next few months as requested by the legislature, if that's appropriate. But that's where we go from here. And you know, in terms of the rest of today's agenda, I listed on there appreciations among our 2 commission members, and you all anticipated that, so you did it well. And Dave, I have a couple of comments I'd like to make too as well at some point when you're ready for that.
Let's see. Why don't we? Yeah. Why don't we? We'll do final comments in a little bit. I just wanted to touch on a couple of the things you were just talking about. So we are planning a press conference tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and we can make. Jordan, I think, has said it's via Zoom, so you know, more screen time. But the weather's going to be awful anyway. I mean, it's going to be really rainy out, I think. So this is, I think, a good practical way forward. We'll make sure we get everybody, all the members of the commission, a link so that they can attend that press conference. And let's see, and there'll be a news release that comes out following that press conference as well. And I guess I would say for also the current members of the commission, like Bruce was saying, you know, we're not quite sure. We know the commission continues. We don't know what the membership's going to be like as we enter the next legislative session under new leadership. But the you know, certainly as people that have been with this process from the start, we're probably all going to get drawn on to either talk with our local, you know, Rotaries or the Lions or the different organizations, civic organizations, our local school boards on the work that was done. So there will be a section on the commission website that has those presentations on there, so that you don't need to, you know, draw them up from scratch. You can, you know, use them how you like, and that's a good resource. Chris actually put one together, I think, that she used in Portsmouth that served as a basis for some of these. Mel and Jay and I spoke with the special education administrators last week or the week before, and used that as a basis for that. So those resources will continue to be available, and I guess Bruce, you want to do some final comments?
Sure. Well, not final, because the public has a right to.
Yeah.
We're not done yet, so we'll.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks, Dave. Just a couple of quick things. So these are just personal comments to the folks that I can see on the screen, as well as those that are listening. You know, what goes around comes around. 45 years ago, right now, I was a staffer for the House Education Committee in Concord. And one of the topics that we were grappling with was school funding and how to create more equitable school funding. I know Doug Hall is listening now, and he was also working on that topic from a different seat at that time as well. But here we are 45 years later, and still trying to solve, as I think Bill Ardinger said at the beginning, the most important public policy issue for our state. So for me, it's been incredibly rewarding and satisfying to be a part of this process. And I'm really humbled and honored by that opportunity and by the fact that Mel and Dave reached out to me a little over a year ago to ask me and the Carsey School to provide support. My appreciations go out to all of you, especially, of course, Carrie and Jordan, who were my, rode shotgun with me all the way through and were available to me, especially every 10 or 15 minutes this past weekend as we tried to knit the final report together. But throughout the last 10 months, they've made this possible. And lastly, in terms of our leadership, Dave, Mel, and Jay, I want to just use a metaphor that we use a lot at New Hampshire Listens, which is the public engagement arm of the Carsey School that Michelle Holt-Shannon directs. She and I founded together a little over 10 years ago. But we talk in that work when we support communities doing difficult conversations around sensitive topics. We ask everybody to bring into those conversations their head, their heart, and their hands. It takes all of us as whole human beings to solve these kinds of difficult problems that too often can divide us rather than bring us together. So in your three, in the leadership you had head, heart, and hands represented. Just to oversimplify things in a lot of ways, Jay's calculation brain and ability to see the numbers that AAR was providing us with and to calculate what the consequences are, both of our current funding model and then alternative funding models. Jay really brought that quantitative intelligence into the conversation. The hard part of this, obviously, we all know, is from Mel. As Susan said, his introducing the concept of our kids into the conversation early on became a guard post for us. His bring us back to the student-centered importance of this work, reminding us that all of our communities are in this together, I think brought kind of an ethical commitment to the work that was critical. And Dave was the hands. Here's this incredible engineer with a design brain who wants to fix stuff and create solutions and make it work, test it, make it work, test it again, make it work. And that intelligence, that brilliance really became, what held us together over 10 months or so. So again, just thanks again for the opportunity to serve you. And I look forward to continuing to serve this commission along with Jordan and Carrie in the coming months in any way that we can.
Well, Bruce, thank you very much. Those are very kind words for all of us. And but again, getting back to it, it took a team to make this happen. So that's the most important part. So I do want to thank, obviously thank Bruce, and I certainly can't say it in any way that's nearly as eloquent as what he just said. Bruce's organization behind this has just been tremendous. The Carsey School, New Hampshire Listens, bringing in the right people at the right time, laying out our work path, not only just all the logistics that went into it, but really the order in how we could all, I think, grow, excuse me, and learn about, what's important in school funding. I thought I knew a lot about it going into it. Having 12 years on the school board, I mean, I've seen more school budgets and budget spreadsheets than I care to ever see again. But I learned so much through this whole process. So well organized by Bruce and Jordan and Carrie, and working with Jordan on fiscal policy was just tremendous. And not just putting agendas together, but what do we want to try to accomplish? How do we reach out to get the right professional input on these things? It was just great. And Carrie, her work in public engagement, along with Michelle and along with Bruce, was just amazing. And that comes through loud and clear in the public engagement report. And I don't know how many gazillion, sessions you had with whether it's different stakeholder groups, from around the state, and in a lot of ways. And I think, Chris said this, the pandemic really did, in some very strange ways, help to inform this work. And I think, it's certainly true when it came to public engagement as well, because we're able to, as Mel and Carrie have said, able to get people, in the same virtual room together that wouldn't necessarily be, all in the same place in Newport, or all in the same place in Rye, or all in the same place, in Guilford or any place else. So, so it did provide, I think, some great opportunities for outreach, and I guess, my final thank you would be to all the people who have been so dedicated to attending these meetings, and coming and sharing comments, sending emails, reporting on the work of the commission. And it's been such I think a steady, group of people who have, no doubt spent nearly as much time, maybe in some cases even more time than we have spent, on this effort. So, so if anybody else has anything else they want to say, actually, I'll just sort of, Mel and Jay, anything you want to add?
Nice to be back.
Yeah, and I just say, I think there's so much content that we've got available to us that there's more to agree on than there is to disagree. So wherever we wind up in this legislative session, I think to further to bury the conversation would just be a complete waste of so much effort and state resources to bring the conversation forward, so that people have a chance to see the pieces and how they fit together. I think we can do that, and find, if we disagree on some things, but I don't think this is a matter of money. I don't think that, I think we can implement something much more clear and straightforward for the New Hampshire citizens to participate and understand. We can do that in this next legislative session. I feel an obligation to do that, and to work with every legislator that's here to further the conversation, put the pieces in front of us. Let's agree where we can agree, but it doesn't take more dollars to do something that's more fair. And we can end up with that outcome. And I think that's hopefully something that we can find agreement and move forward.
Jay, thanks for those words. That's what it's going to take for sure. So, yeah, Rick, you got to unmute. That's probably the last time I have to say that.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully. I want to thank Senator Khan for what he just said, because I think there are so many aspects of this report that everybody can agree to. One of the issues I wrote in my minority response was the minority supports the commission finding that education funding should better address disparity and inequity differences between wealthy and poor districts. I think that's a core that we will achieve in this next session, working together. We got to drive that home, and to ensure that we are, as Mel says, working to help every child in this state. It's just a matter of ironing out some of the issues of what model we use and how we weight and all those things. I think it's very doable.
Great. That's great to hear, Rick. So, and we'll make that happen. So, all right. We've got about 8 minutes left in our scheduled meeting. We're a little bit over time, but again, what's new, I suppose, for us. But we would like to open up the floor to members of the public, you know, our attendees who have been so committed to this. If anybody would like to share some quick words with us, and then hopefully we can end right about on time. So how are we doing, Jordan?
Good. We've got Jeff has a hand up. I'll bring him in now.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Jeff McClinch, and I'm the project director of the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project. I really just wanted to offer one final comment here, and that is to express my own personal gratitude, but also the gratitude of the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project for all of the time, energy, and insight that every member of this commission and every member of the Carsey staff has devoted to the enterprise. Obviously, each of you brought your own sort of experiences and concerns and priorities, and so there's a diversity of views expressed throughout the past 10 months. But I think it was clear in meeting after meeting that you were all unified in a very key way, and that is in your desire to serve the children and taxpayers of our state and to serve the public good more broadly. And that unity is irreplaceable and invaluable, and we are exceptionally grateful for it. And so I really just wanted to say how much I look forward to working with all of you in the many months ahead. And I'm sure I will see you all on a Zoom screen in the not too distant future. Thanks again.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
All right, and next we've got Paul.
Hi, Paul. Welcome.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Paul DeShane, representing the town of Newington. And I have to echo all the accolades that all the members have said. This has been a phenomenal group. I've been very impressed by its dedication to its mission and the amount of work that went into this. Again, I was a late participant in this process, but I've been just in awe on the amount of work that the membership has put towards this, and awe of the Casey group in order to bring all those different parts together into a report that you have now here. I had my severe doubts that all those pieces would fit together, but they've done it somehow, and so it's an amazing accomplishment, and I compliment everyone involved for that. The one thing I do wish to emphasize, though, and it's echoing a lot of what Chris Dwyer said and included in her report, is that I think the commission spent a lot of time and a lot of focus on why we should be funding school or having school funding. It's the compassionate, the moralistic, the sexy part of this whole process was how to more adequately address the opportunities for children in the state. However, I think you've missed the mark or short shifted on taxpayer equity. I will reserve my comments to a written comment sometime afterwards, but the general impression I'm leaving here is that taxpayer equity somehow has been defined unintentionally by the commission that everyone has to pay higher property taxes. And that's the only way to create an equitable situation. And I'm not convinced that that's the case. I'll try to make that argument better in a written statement, but that's the one takeaway I'd like to leave with the commission, that I think it's unfortunate more focus couldn't have been done to alleviate that impression. At least that's what I'm leaving with so far. So again, thank you everyone for this opportunity for making my comments and to participate the way we have, and your efforts will certainly provide great basis for this legislature to move forward, and I hope the positive outcome for everyone in the state. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Paul, for your participation in this work.
Okay, next we've got Doug.
Good afternoon, Doug.
Good afternoon. I just want to say congratulations to everybody on the commission and the staff support from Carsey and from AIR. I first got involved with this under the Augenblick formula, trying to figure out how to get that formula to move money to the poorer communities. And that was before the Claremont case. I will say that in all the years I've watched this, this has been the most comprehensive, best investigation of the problem and movement toward a solution through all those decades. And I really want to just thank everyone on the commission, especially the leadership, Dave, Mel, Jay, and Bruce and the Carsey staff. Good job.
Thanks so much, Doug. And thanks for all your work on this topic, and you know, it's going to require all our efforts to keep it moving forward through this session. That's for sure.
Right, next we have Jane.
Good afternoon, Jane.
Good afternoon. I just want to echo the thanks and gratitude of the prior three speakers. Again, you folks have done an amazing job with such complex information, and we're able to connect it and distill it in a way that's understandable. And that is so very much appreciated. And again, I think this will be the standard moving forward, obviously, as to how to approach these kinds of complex topics. I would agree and support the comments made by Chris Dwyer, also the comments made by Paul DeShane. I think I agree wholeheartedly that the why and the diagnosis was superb, but the medicine is a little bitter. The medicine to fix it is the property tax, and I think we all know that that is overburdened. And so I would hope, I understand that the draft is finalized, but I hope moving forward, when it translates into an actual formula, that we're very conscious of all taxpayer equity, and that we don't create a system of a donor receiver town. But certainly thank you all so very, very much for your considerable effort. Again, thanks. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Jane, for your participation and engagement in this. Thanks so much. Okay, how's it looking, Jordan?
Not seeing any other hands raised at present.
Hey, we're going to end on time. It's 4 o'clock. Jay, don't throw us over.
All right, I won't.
No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Let's hear it. Bring it on.
Jesse Levin has been sitting here wiping his eyes like a parent sending his kid off to college. And you know, Jesse, maybe send us off with how are we stacking up with the rest of the country?
Oh boy, I'm not prepared to speak on that, but I am prepared to speak on my opinion of the great effort you've all put in. I think you're all off to an excellent start to have these very real and actionable policy discussions. And I'm just glad that we've been able to shed some light on very complicated issues and bring some numbers that you can all reflect on. You know, we come into this work, we don't want to tell you what to do. We want to tell you the what is. And as policymakers, you have to decide. You guys have the really hard decisions to make. For us, we just try to bring the best science forth to shed light on the issue. So I think that you guys are well poised to do this, and it's been a great group. The discussion that I've heard is really second to none in my experience from all of the other states that I've worked with. You guys have true dedication, true understanding, a willingness to dig deep and to dig deep into the issues and truly understand all the implications of what the various decisions might have. So I'm just thoroughly impressed. I'll leave it at that. I'm thoroughly impressed. I would love to work with you guys some more in the future if you need it. But I think that you're well poised to take this to the next step. And I look forward to seeing what turns out.
Great. Jesse, thanks so much to you and Drew and Tammy and Bruce and Caitlin for all that, all your effort. And thanks for joining us today too. That means a lot to all of us. So, all right. And and Jay, really nicely done, because you basically left it to our consultants to throw us over time. So really well done there, Jay.
Without charge.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we've probably come to the end of the meeting. Yeah. And there's some more work to do. We got to fix that 3132 nit and remove the draft watermark and get it ready for release tomorrow noon. Hopefully we'll see as many of us that can make it tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll make sure everybody's got the link, and I believe the House Communication Office is also sending out that media advisory this afternoon. So that should be out there too. So and there'll be a news release that we'll make sure everybody has tomorrow once that's available. So. All righty. Anything else for the good of the cause? Mel, all right. All right. We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Good. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Have a good holiday season.